You are the producer of Streamline, this beautifully directed, beautifully made, exceptionally performed film about a young boy struggling with his gifts as an athlete and with his rather substandard, dysfunctional family. So, Blake, you're the producer on Streamline, and you've been doing a lot of producing. You were an actor, but you've now got into full-time producing. Can you just tell us about that transition?
What happened was I left school and I'd wanted to do acting, and I trained with acting, and that was the passion and the life and the goals and everything. And I think 6 to 8 years of cleaning toilets, I think I was the mince pie promo guy at the local train station. Every other job that I discovered I'd have to do to pay the wages while I was trying to get it up as an actor. And I think I'd landed nice little jobs here and there. And it got to a point where my agent, who was sort of like my second father, he passed away. And when he passed away, it was like the passion went with it. And I went, all right, well, I'm not going to sit around and try and wait for somebody to give me a job. How do I make my own role? How do I make a film so I can give myself a role? And one of my friends at the time, who's still a really close friend, him and I took a loan out and we went to Cannes to the film festival and took a script with us and basically lied a lot to pretend that we were much more advanced with this film than we were. And we would sneak into parties, sneak into meetings, put our names on lists that we shouldn't have been on. And we figured out over 2 weeks what we sort of needed. We'd answer questions wrong in a meeting, and I would take a note of what that question was. So then the next meeting we'd have, I'd say that statement first before I was even asked it. And so eventually we started looking like we knew what we were doing. And we made that movie, which was Out of the Shadows, and it wasn't that great at all. And I think I spent the whole time stressing about, in the scene, I couldn't even act because I'd be looking over and there'd be someone sitting there on their phone, and I'm like, I'm paying this person their wage, not doing their job. And I immediately just triggered into producer mode. And look, that's the last time I've done any acting, and I've produced now 6 features. And I very much am a producer. Be hard pressed to try and remember even how to act.
How have you found producing?
Producing, I like putting things together. I like relationships. I like talking with people. I like the aspect of that can't be done and then going, well, I'm going to do it. Anyone who says that, it's this natural chip on the shoulder. So I love problem solving, and really producing is just full-time problem solving. It's being given something that most people are saying it really can't be done, and figuring out a way to make it happen. I enjoy the challenges of it. I don't enjoy the stress of it. I'm currently with the family and we've jumped in a caravan and we're going around the country. So I've done that to take a bit more of a change of environment while I'm working, which has been nice. But yeah, I've got a good team at Bronte Pictures that I work with, and I enjoy the relationships and the fact that really we're making make-believe. We can't take it too seriously.
Streamline is, I just sort of, a fabulous film. Beautifully directed. It looks great. The performances are just out of the park. Can you tell me about the genesis of the project? How it came to you,
Yeah.
how you got Ian Thorpe involved? Just tell us a bit about how you got the project to be.
Well, the director pitched the idea to Nathan Walker, who handles international for Bronte, and myself in 2018. And it just sounded like a really fantastic pitch. He'd made a short film called Luna at the time, and it was very hot property. Everybody wanted this short film, and it was like, how the hell did this guy make this X amount of money? And that typical buzz that goes around the industry in Hollywood at the time. So we missed out on that project, and so we thought, well, what else have you got, man? Show us, like, you surely someone as talented as you has got a library of content. And then he pitched this idea of a swimmer, and just such a good story. Like, it just resonated straight away, and we said, you know what, let's do it. We'll commission it. And he began writing the draft, and the first draft he wrote is like nearly picture perfect. It's very rare for us to get a first draft in that we could have shot that draft. So we took that draft at that strength. We usually wouldn't take a film to the marketplace until about a third draft stage, when we're really sure you're going to get that one opportunity for people to read, and you want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. So we sent it out. We got a great response back. And we began sort of putting together the casting process long before the financing process. So usually it'd go the other way around. But with this project, Jake Ryan and Sam Parsonson, I knew Jake from previous films, and he's a close friend. And they play the brothers in this film. And they were just out pissed one night, and I said to send through a video of them to just be having fun, and being pissed, really, and that was their audition. They sent through a video of the both of them in character as the Bush brothers, and we showed it to Tyson, and it was like, yeah, it has to be these guys. And Levi Miller at the time, it felt like a perfect project for him, because he wanted to break free from I guess the child image and into a leading man. And the agent read this, and it was straight away a very fast turnaround for that. And Tyson really wanted Levi, and that just came together well, because he'd just grown maturely and like body as well over the course of 18 months leading into it. So they were great. Like, putting the casting together was actually quite easy and fun. And even the supports on this, like, you're looking at, say, Hunter Page Lockhart in for a brother role who shoots out a day, or Steve Bastoni coming in for a small role. Like, every single character on this was thoroughly developed and cast appropriately. And then, yeah, we put the financing together, and we're in production end of 2019. So around 12 months from when we actually commissioned the project, we were shooting it.
My understanding is that's pretty quick for an Australian film to get up that quickly. Is that the case?
It was. It was. It's a credit to how hardworking the team at Bronte is, but it's also just a credit to the quality of the script. When you've got a script like that, things move very fast. And at the time, we reached out to Ian Thorpe when we were in just before pre-production, and I reached out, got in contact, had a conversation with him. He said, look, I'll read it. I'm sure he's heard that, said that 20 times before. And then it was nice enough to hear that, yeah, like, this is fantastic, and I'm on. What do you need from me? And it was nothing but positive, and offering everything from him throughout the whole thing. And we'd fly him up to set. He'd work with Levi, not only mentally about being the best in the world at 15 and what that would be, the pressure on you and all of those things, but also physically at the blocks, and how he'd like to walk out of the ready room up to the blocks. And he was really good. He gave us everything, really.
What was it about the story that resonated with you in particular?
My whole teenage years was a sprinter, and a running sprinter. And there was something about it just was nostalgic in a sense. None of the abusive. They had a very good upbringing. But at the same time, I just thought the relationships in this was just fantastic. The subtlety of everything, the fact that there's indigenous family, and his missus and my missus and my kid's grandfather are all Aboriginal. And so I just liked how it presented that without raising a big flag going, hey, we're trying to be equality here. It's just, it just is, and we're not forcing it down your throat, and it's just normal and it's natural. And I like the naturalism of how that presented on the page. So there were a lot of things in this. I think it was just written terrifically, and it didn't leave a stone unturned.
Blake, I've got to tell you, you've just answered a question that I was going to ask about the indigenous characters in the film. So I'm really glad that you brought it up. Can we please have a lot more of this in Australian films?
I agree. I feel it's the only way you move forward. If it becomes normal, it becomes normal. And we live in a country now where I tell you what, the last month of travel have definitely got a big culture shock in terms of experiencing the racism in sort of West Queensland in small towns and being like, holy shit, like it's still big out here. And I'm very privileged in my little hub up in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales to not see it as much, and with so many Indigenous friends and family, that what they have to go through and what they're still battling today is there. But the way I feel like it's going to be fixed in the long term, elements of it, is by creating content like this, where you're presenting to a public just the image of harmony and unison of everybody together without saying anything about it. And if we see that 10 times, 20 times over the next 5 years, the new generation coming through is going to think that's just absolutely how it is. It's the normal. We don't have to say anything more, I don't think.
Mate, just with some of the themes in the film, just to touch on a couple, the idea of the obligation somebody has to their gift, which is what the young man struggles with in this film. He has this extraordinary gift as a swimmer, yet he somehow almost resents either the gift itself or the pressure that is put under to live up to it. Can you just tell us a little bit about that theme?
I think it's everybody knows of somebody who, I'm going to use Good Will Hunting as that beautiful scene when he's saying to Matt Damon, like, you've got this, like, you can get out of here and we'll be here in 20 years' time. And everybody knows that person and's got it. And I think that person has to not feel that it's a burden and the pressure on them. The difference I think I found with this is that boy genuinely loves swimming, and you notice it at the very end of the film, and he loves the training, he loves the process, he switches and turns into somebody else when he's in there. But it's not for anyone else to tell him that he loves it. It's not for anyone else to tell him that he owes it to them to do this. And I think a lot of people love doing something until someone tells them to do it, in a way. And it's an automatic turn off a lot of the times. It's like, yeah, I want to go do this, but if you tell me to do it, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to sit here. I want to make my own choice to do that. And I think the external pressure this kid had, where you felt like his coach, his mum, everybody was riding on him, and to an extent, I believe, using him for their own sort of inner fulfillment and to get them out of whatever situation they were in at the time. He was their way out. And I thought that was quite a selfish thing from the mum and the coach to put on him.
I think it's an extraordinary portrait of a dysfunctional family. The film, I think, does a really good job just showing the complicated push-pull dynamics in a family like that, where he's basically in a swirl of confusion about how to feel about members of his family. And the other members of the family have the same thing, especially the mother. She at one point kicks him out, and then as soon as he actually does what she apparently wants him to do, she's out there begging him to come back. I mean, that's how humans are. Yeah. They are full of contradictions. And this film shows that.
Absolutely. And I think it shows it across the board too. There's not just him and his mother. It's every character's flaws that are thoroughly explored in this. And I think the subtlety in which Tyson shot some of these scenes, I think one of my favorite performances is Sam Parsonson as the middle brother. I think he has little screen time, but what he gives is you're watching. He's got his own story of a brother stuck too far gone nearly as a result of this situation, and he's trying to save him from repeating his mistakes. And the empathy you feel for that middle brother, yeah.
How did you get Jason Isaacs involved in this film? That is a
Well,
major
Jason,
get.
yeah. Look, I love him. I just think he's a terrific actor, and I think the films he's done over the years is like his role in The Patriot might be one of the greatest bad guys I've ever hated so much in my life. Um, and then Pan, like he was Hook, and funnily enough, PJ and I were working on a project and talking to Jason, and obviously him and Jason did Peter Pan together. And look, we basically looked at, well, we can bring anybody in to play this role and shoot them out in a week because they're really only sporadically put throughout. They're talked a lot about, and they're the base of the whole film, really. And so we got in contact with his agent. Tyson sent a nice message, and we work with the agents already. And we all know sort of each other from other talent being cast in other projects, things like that. And so we put it forward to him. He was coming to Australia, and this is what I think made it so really worthwhile. He was coming here to do a few things, and it worked. The timing was just perfect. So we were able to get him for 4 days. But then he turned up on the 5th and said, "What do you need? I'm here. Like, use me. I can do EPK. I can do." He was just really giving. And usually you expect these people to turn up and you'd have to treat them so differently. But it was like, "There's your trailer." And he was like, no, I'm good. I want to hang out with everybody. And yeah, he was phenomenal. I'm actually talking about, he wants to direct. So we're looking at something at the moment for him to direct. He's just a phenomenal actor and a really giving person. Recently, he gave an intro to the Cinefest closing night. And that was just in 2 seconds, a text, and "So sorry, mate, here it is. Sorry about and it's just 1 minute, beautiful intro." He's just a giving actor, which is rare these days.
How would you describe the style of direction in this film?
Oh, it's really nearly documentary style in the sense of Steadicam nearly most of the film, like handheld camera, following really closely. Michael Latham's a fantastic cinematographer. And it was really like we're here nearly the whole film. I think I was the asshole producer a few times and had to be like, "Guys, can we please widen it up a couple of times just to get some establishing, show us where we are, take us out of this sort of claustrophobic, well-intentioned world, just to have that 1 or 2 breaks." But they just shot this so specifically, and they knew exactly what they wanted together. So the style, like tonally, I'm feeling Whiplash or Animal Kingdom or Snowtown in its elements of those films, but then shot in a really sort of close, tight, nearly documentary style.
I just want to ask something just for the sake of clarity. In one of the final shots of the film, where he swims through frame, bottom to top, and you're looking down, it's an overhead shot. The black tiles in the pool, once his wake clears, appears to form 3 crucifixes. Is that intentional, or is it? Am I reading way too much? I thought That's a
I
very interesting
felt,
image to end
yeah.
on. Was it deliberate?
It was a deliberate shot to end on, yet that we hadn't seen. So Stephen Evans is the editor on this film, and he came on and finished Chopper. He did Baby Teeth 2 years ago, which did wonders. And we brought him on, and he really transformed the edit. So he's chosen that shot. I'll have to ask him if he's seen that, because I haven't. That's news to me. So we love. It felt like a really clear, clean cut shot to end, rather than him hit the blocks and everyone up, and it felt like a nicer let it sort of swim out. But yeah, I'm gonna look at that. I didn't know.
If it was
Yeah,
deliberate, I thought it was a small touch. Just speaking to the whole idea of, forgiveness and redemption and, unity and family, which are all, of course, very basic Christian values. So I thought it might have been a nod to that. It may
I'll
well
find
have
out
been,
next
but you
week.
weren't aware of it.
Might
That's
tell
fine.
them. Yeah, I'll come back to you. I'll
Now,
find
mate,
out.
it's a very lean film. It's 86 minutes. Is
Yeah.
there a much longer cut?
Funnily enough, the cut earlier was shorter. It actually finished earlier on, and it wasn't ever designed to be like a first, second, third act type film. And I think you'll notice that because the third act goes for like 8 minutes. It definitely could have gone longer. The problem with it, if it had gone longer, is you started losing a lot. This isn't me speaking. We did a lot of audience testing with this film, and you started to lose a lot of empathy for Boy, and started to actually turn it more into a bit of like, oh, just get on with it. Like, stop sooking, stop moping. Because what we had shot, where it would have extended the cut, was just a lot of sort of not depressing, but it was just dark. It was with the boy, weren't particularly, not much was actually taking place. And it was just sort of fine cutting to at least get the character to a stage where you really felt for him, and then before you were on his train, and then you validated some of the things he did, and you cared about a lot of things. But if you'd really headed down that path a little bit further, you would have gone to the other extent where it was like, you've sort of lost our empathy here, man.
You test screened this film. Test
Yeah,
screenings in America are almost religious. There are
yeah,
filmmakers who will insist that their films are test screened. Comedy directors, especially, they won't release a film unless it's been test screened. In this
absolutely.
country, test screenings are not really an embedded part of the filmmaking process. Can you just tell me about what you think of the importance of test screening and how this film benefited from the test screening process?
I think it's paramount. I think what we usually do is we get to, let's say, just before the director's cut, and we work with the director and say, you at a point to present this where you would feel comfortable getting some feedback from at this point. No, all right, we'll wait 2 weeks. We'll take that cut. We'll bring in, say, 30 people into a theaterette. They'll have a questionnaire, and the questionnaire will be as simple as, who's your favorite character? Who's your least favorite character, and why? Favorite parts of the film, least favorite parts of the film. You got to remember, at this point, there's no music, there's no sound. This is a raw edit. So usually for people that haven't seen films at this stage, they always look pretty shit. Like they're not what you're seeing. You could see mistakes. You might see a boom mic in the shot. It's just really raw. But the point we're trying to get out of this is, while we have another 8 weeks in the edit suite, and we want to know, are we heading too far down on this character? And it is really paramount. Like, we had a film that we tested, and who we thought everybody would get around, they were like, no, least. we went back in the edit suite, and if this was a scene right now and I was the least favorite and we'd all had the shots on me, right now as I'm talking, we've put the camera on you responding instead, and we've swapped every shot around and completely made the film about somebody else through the responsive audience testing. And the rule of thumb I've got is if 7 out of 10 people say the same thing, we have to listen to it. You can't listen to every Tom, Dick and Harry as they come through with their notes, but if there's a majority coming through and they're raising a red flag on an issue, how arrogant would you be to not listen to that and implement some sort of change around it? So yeah, in Streamline it was paramount. A lot of the film was a little bit different than what we've ended up with now. It was guided by test screenings.
Should there be more test screening in Australia?
I don't. There's a lot of directors in Australia that are just like, this is my thing, it's my way, it's not a collaborative experience, this is sort of my way or the highway, and a lot of producers allow that to take place, and I don't particularly, I just don't see the point in it. An example though is if it's not needed, and if it's truly, so we just finished Wyrmwood last week, the second Wyrmwood. That's a film that Kia knows that world inside out. It's his brain, and that film is why it's successful. And that's the one film I haven't done test screening on, because the word for Kia was whatever you create is what we're putting out. When you're doing a drama and it's character driven and it's very much dictated by how people are going to respond to certain characters, then I don't get why people aren't doing it more. I know a couple of producers that insist on it happening, but there's definitely half the industry doesn't do test screenings, and multiple test screenings. Like we do things like we pay $80 a head and we send the screeners out, and we get a very different array of people to watch it. And when they're getting paid as well, they're taking it very seriously, and you're getting a really thorough process.
Yeah. And how has COVID affected the release of the film?
Oh, don't talk about it. Mate, last year I had Escape and Evasion come out, and third day into the theatres they closed. This year we had 50-something screens, and the majority were New South Wales, Victoria, and they all shut. So we've released on I know, all our Q&As. We had MIF. We had all the talent flying in for a big MIF. We had Cinefest closing gala night, and we couldn't attend it. So it's just been a disaster. It is what it is. We did a pre-sale to Stan earlier on, which was fantastic, because now we've secured that. Next week it comes out on Stan. So
Jake Ryan, his performance in this is just extraordinary. It's hard to believe he's an actor, which I think is a compliment.
We've just put him in Wyrmwood, and he's on fire there. And I don't know if you got a chance to see the Savage film he did, where he played the head of a bikie club in New Zealand.
I haven't seen that, but
it's great. He's the face. He's the lead in that film, and I've known him for a good 8 years now, and he's just got the chops. And why I like Jake so much is when he's not acting, he's not an actor, and you want to hang out with him then, because he's not talking about acting. But then he's just phenomenal. Like I think this year we'll have Wyrmwood come out next year. We'll have this come out. Savage did a little good for him, but I really think next year is going to be his year. I hopefully would like to see him win some awards for Best Supporting Actor for this film, because I think he just was terrific, and the vulnerability and he let himself just go into this role. It's his subtlety. He doesn't overact, and I think that is Jake's less is more approach. Just work.
Wyrmwood, you say we're going to see it next year, hopefully on a big screen. How's it looking?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really, really good. We announce its premiere next week at a really fantastic big festival, and it'll do well because it's just got an audience. The boys have just gone and made a film that is a step up from the first one. Production value, everything about it is just a bigger, enhanced version of Wyrmwood 1, and stronger, more focus on character development and the story arcs. And then we've got, again, two indigenous leading girls who blow your mind. They're just phenomenal. And yet again, we don't tell you that they're indigenous. We don't need to.
I got a feeling that the film, given that the first one has such a strong following, that it'll be big, but also probably big for another reason, and that is because it deals with the zombie apocalypse. You travel through Melbourne now, you look around now, and it actually looks like an apocalypse has occurred. In fact, in what other circumstance, Blake, would you have so many businesses shut? Would you have streets in major cities deserted? It's only in an apocalypse that you see that. So maybe it would be almost fitting for the times.
Absolutely, and it's uncanny in the script, and we've got a class system in the script where the certain rich people are being absolutely living a normal life, like nothing's happening, and the majority of us are having to fight tooth and nail, and it's so reflective and contextual with the current life most of us are living. So, yeah, I think it'll be timely next year.